The Celtics just made a shocking trade. Asterisk, something just happened in Boston that most fans will glance over, dismissing it as just another minor move in a long offseason. But the truth is, this decision might be the crack in the surface that reveals something much deeper about the Celtics' strategy going forward. Brad Stevens and the Celtics front office didn't just trade Georges Niang and sign Chris Boucher for depth. No, this was something else entirely. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the signal hidden beneath the noise. Georges Niang's exit wasn't just a salary dump, and it certainly wasn't just about freeing up cap space. Getting rid of his $8 million deal gives Boston more breathing room under the second apron. But if that's all you see, you're not looking close enough. Niang wasn't just another rotation piece, he was a link to a version of basketball that Boston is quietly shifting away from. He was predictable, comfortable, solid, and that's exactly why he had to go. The addition of R.J. Lewis Jr., an undrafted rookie who most scouts didn't even project in the top 45, doesn't make sense until you realize what the Celtics are actually doing. They're hunting upside with teeth. They're not just filling roster spots, they're chasing volatility, youth, and energy at a moment when most teams would play it safe. Lewis Jr. isn't a guaranteed contributor, but he isn't supposed to be. His value isn't in what he is today, it's in what he could become tomorrow. And that is something Stevens has always seen before anyone else does. He's 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan. He averaged over 18 points in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball. And when everything collapsed for him in March, when the lights were the brightest, he fell hard. But here's the twist. The Celtics love guys who have fallen. They love players with a chip on their shoulder, players who have something to prove. And R.J. Lewis Jr. fits that mold perfectly. Meanwhile, on the same day, Boston signs Chris Boucher. On paper, it's a minor signing. A one-year deal for $3.3 million. Nothing flashy, but peel back the layers, and it starts to look very intentional. Boucher is not a long-term solution. He's a bridge. But he's a bridge built for a specific moment. The Celtics needed size, shot blocking, shooting, and veteran presence. Boucher checks every box. He's played over 400 NBA games. He's a former champion. He once dropped 30 points on the Celtics and made them remember his name. And now, he's wearing green. That's not a coincidence. Stevens has a history of bringing in players who once embarrassed Boston. He doesn't forget. And more importantly, he doesn't think small. This is about more than just plugging holes in the rotation. It's about culture. It's about signaling to the league that Boston isn't afraid to evolve. The Celtics are not clinging to familiarity anymore. They're letting go of predictable. They're investing in the unknown, in volatility, in players who disrupt the mold. Think about this. Boston now controls the two-way contract of R.J. Lewis Jr., meaning he will spend time developing within the Celtics G League system. That's where the experiment begins. Not every move has to pay off immediately. Some are seeds being planted beneath the surface, waiting for the right storm to grow. And when it does, don't act surprised. Look at Chris Boucher again. He's not flashy, but he fits. He's one of the few bigs available who can stretch the floor, block shots, and hold his own against second units. He has more playoff experience than most of Boston's current bench combined. He is not just a depth signing, he is a test, a low-risk, high-reward addition that gives Boston optionality. And here's the real kicker. These moves are all being made with the clear intention, keeping Boston flexible. This isn't the type of offseason where Boston goes ill-in with massive contracts or panicked trades, walking a tightrope between short-term depth and long-term control. Because when you're already sitting on the best duo in basketball, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you don't need to swing big every time. You need to be smart. You need to be patient. You need to see the floor 10 moves ahead. So no, this isn't just Niang out and Boucher in. This is Boston reconfiguring its chessboard. They're creating room to breathe. They're bringing in tools that can either be used now or flipped later. They're betting on growth, resilience, and untapped potential. And if the rest of the league isn't paying attention, Boston might just surprise them again. Because under the surface of every small move Stevens makes, there's always something brewing. Celtics are not done, not even close. What Boston is quietly building after letting go of Niang, no one saw this coming. While the league's attention was glued to blockbuster trades and superstar extensions, the Boston Celtics executed a pair of under-the-radar moves that could end up being far more consequential than anyone's ready to admit. They quietly unloaded Georges Niang's $8.2 million contract and pulled off a low-key signing of Chris Boucher. At first glance, this looks like a money-saving shuffle, but there's something much bigger brewing beneath the surface, and it goes beyond cap flexibility. Let's start with the obvious distraction. Boston is shedding salary. That's what every headline is screaming. But the Celtics didn't just clear financial space, they made a deliberate choice to switch energy. Niang was never meant to define this new era of Celtics basketball. Boucher, on the other hand, might. Why? Because Boucher doesn't just fill a spot, he forces a question. At 32, coming off a solid campaign with Toronto, where he averaged 10 points, 4.5 rebounds, and hit 36% from deep. He's no fading vet looking for a final paycheck. He could have gone to any contender. He chose Boston. Why? Because Boucher sees something others don't. A system waiting to unlock his chaos. A franchise in transformation, not decline. People will focus on the millions saved, but this is about a new kind of Celtics rotation, one that prizes length, versatility, and high motor disruptors over static shooting and predictable roles. Niang was a shooter. Boucher is a switchblade. You don't know how he'll be used yet, and that's the point. He's not here to replace anyone. He's here to make things uncomfortable for opposing benches and for Brad Stevens' staff to test combinations no scout is ready for. Think of a second unit that suddenly turns defensive energy into offense without warning. Think of a team that can slide from traditional sets to chaotic hybrid lineups with no drop-off in spacing. But don't let this move fool you into thinking Boston's just tinkering around the edges. Look closer, and you'll see a front office making calculated plays to position the team below key salary thresholds while still deepening the rotation. That's not a coincidence. That's preparation. Boston is now roughly $8 million below the second apron and just $12 million from getting out of the luxury tax entirely. That isn't just an accounting trick. That opens doors. Immediate doors, trade flexibility, mid-season maneuvering, room for unexpected signings. And perhaps most importantly, breathing space in a league that punishes overspending with brutal precision. But here's the twist. With Porzingis, Holiday, and Kornet all expected to miss significant time, and Al Horford likely on his way to Golden State, you'd think the Celtics would be in scramble mode. They're not. Instead, calm, calculated, and confident enough to enter the season with just 14 rostered players. That says one thing loud and clear: they know exactly what they're doing. The addition of Anthony Simons, the quiet bet on Luka Garza, the underplayed signing of Josh Minott, the continued belief in young pieces like Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez, and the sneaky two-way moves like RJ Luis and Max Shulga, all of it is adding up to something. Not a rebuild, not a teardown, but something much more dangerous to opponents, a silent evolution. While most teams chase names, Boston is chasing fit, and now they're dangerous in a different way. They've already proven they can win it all. But now they're building a version of the team that can outlast and outadapt in the modern cap era. A team that can pivot mid-season without penalty. A team that can survive injury absences without sacrificing identity. A team that could still shock the league with one more unexpected splash when no one's looking. Not underestimate the implications of letting go of Niang. It wasn't just clearing a bench piece. That was removing predictability. That was subtracting comfort. And Boucher's arrival is not filler. It's a message. The Celtics are not only preparing for the regular season, they're preparing for what comes after it. There's one spot left on the roster. They could fill it tomorrow, or wait until the moment it matters most. Either way, they've left themselves options. Jordan Walsh, despite his summer league flashes, may not be guaranteed. Amari Williams, the 46th pick, still floats in roster limbo. But Stevens isn't rushing. This is control. This is leverage. Most teams come off a championship season trying to run it back. Boston isn't interested in comfort. They're chasing sustainable edge. That edge might come from names most fans haven't thought about yet. That's not a weakness. That's the plan. Boucher signing, the Niang exit, the cap flexibility, mysterious final roster spot, quiet additions of Minott and Gonzalez, the calculated non-return of Horfordites, all part of a formula. A formula designed not for the first 20 games, but for the final 20, the ones that matter. The Celtics are not getting worse. They're getting unpredictable. And in today's NBA, that's the scariest kind of contender. What is Ben Simmons really waiting for? Why the Celtics might be the one thing standing between him and obscurity, Ben Simmons is not just weighing offers. He is confronting a career-defining choice. Behind closed doors, two franchises are moving in silence, each with a very different promise for his future. While headlines casually pit the Knicks and Celtics as co-favorites in this pursuit, something far deeper is unfolding behind the scenes. something that could radically reshape Simmons' trajectory. And more importantly, tip the balance of power in the East. Most fans see Simmons as a fading all-star, a name that lost its shine. But they're missing something. They're not seeing what the Celtics might already have understood. Despite his recent numbers to 5 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 5.6 assists per game, Simmons remains a disruptor. A uniquely built player with an elite defensive IQ, a 6 feet 10 inches frame, vision that rivals top-tier guards, and a hunger to prove everyone wrong. And that hunger, if pointed in the right direction, could be more valuable than any stats sheet. Reports suggest the Knicks are leading the race. That's the obvious move. They offer the spotlight, the noise, the chaos. They offer Simmons the chance to get lost in the crowd again. But the Celtics? That's a different story. Boston doesn't need to save Simmons. They need to weaponize him. In a system where offensive load is distributed and defensive versatility is prized, Simmons would not be asked to be the guy. He'd be asked to break the system for the other team. Imagine a second unit where Simmons defends 5 positions, pushes the pace, and finds shooters with surgical passes. Imagine a playoff series where a fully healthy, mentally locked-in Ben Simmons becomes Joe Matsula's ultimate chess piece, not a star, but a lever that moves the board. Phoenix was reportedly interested too, but Boston offers something they don't: stability, culture, contenders who don't just want to win now, but are building something sustainable. That's what makes this decision so critical. This isn't about minutes, touches, or headlines. This is about legacy. Simmons is 29, which means he's no longer judged by potential. He's judged by his ability to adapt, evolve, and contribute on a winning team. His health is always going to be a question, but that doesn't eliminate his value. It just changes how smart teams use him. And Brad Stevens has a track record of seeing beyond the box score. Look at how Boston has been operating. Quiet, calculated, building a roster not just to win 55 games, but to win ugly postseason matchups against teams with size, speed, and unpredictability. Simmons, if used right, becomes a solution to problems that haven't even arrived yet. Knicks fans may see Simmons as a wild card, a side project. Boston could see him as a luxury tool, not someone they need to fix, but someone they can plug into an already elite framework and watch the rest of the league scramble to adjust. Let's be clear, no one is expecting Simmons to walk into TD Garden and average 20 points, but he doesn't have to. What the Celtics need is a player who can switch on 5 positions, ignite fast breaks, and give Tatum and Brown minutes of freedom without compromising the defense. What they need is a player who thrives when expectations are precisely what they are now: low, quiet, and full of doubt from the outside world. For Simmons, Boston offers the one thing that New York can't: a shot at redemption that doesn't rely on empty promises or media distractions. A team that wins quietly with discipline and grit. A team where he doesn't have to be the story, he might just be the twist ending. So, what is Ben Simmons really waiting for? Maybe he's not deciding between New York and Boston. Maybe he's deciding between noise and purpose, between fading into the chaos or fitting into a machine built for championships. The Celtics are watching, patient, prepared, and if Simmons makes the right call, so will the rest of the NBA.